Janet Van Dyne, Earth-616. Janet Van Dyne is a fashion designer and socialite who also acts as the winsome superheroine known as the Wasp. In order to avenge the death of her father at the hands of an extradimensional creature, she was exposed to the size-altering Pym Particles and was biologically altered by Dr. Hank Pym, the tiny adventurer Ant-Man. As the Wasp, she became Pym's crime-fighting partner, having the ability to shrink in size, fly with synthetic wings and fire energy stings. Alongside Pym, she became a founding member of the Avengers, being personally responsible for suggesting the name of the group. The Wasp eventually married Pym, but their relationship would turn out to be a tragic experience for she became a victim of domestic violence. Having weaponized the pain of her hurtful divorce, she has become one of the most prominent, efficient and empathetic Avengers leaders. During the Skrull invasion, the Wasp had her powers tampered with to serve as a final attack for the aliens in the form of a living bomb. Her apparent demise was followed by the end of the war. She was later found lost in Microverse by the original Avengers and has resumed her superheroic career. More recently, the Wasp has been part of multiple activities in the superhero community. She was a member of the Unity Division, an initiative aimed to integrate mutant and human superheroes, and became a secret agent of Wakanda, working closely with the Avengers again. Additionally, after witnessing Pym's death, she acts as an inspiring and motherly mentor to her stepdaughter, the new Wasp. History. The winsome Wasp. Janet Van Dyne was born into a wealthy family. Her uncle was textile magnate Blaine Van Dyne, and his wife was talented fashion designer Amelia. Janet's father was world-renowned scientist Dr. Vernon Van Dyne, while her mother was a vibrant and creative woman who unfortunately sustained an incapacitating brain injury in a car accident when Janet was a child. Trapped in a vegetative state for years, Janet's mother sadly withered away and died. As a young woman, Janet lived the life of an opulent socialite, having grown an interest in pursuing an education in fashion design. Usually accompanying her father in scientific meetings, she introduced herself to Hank Pym, a young and unconventional scientist who experienced frustration by getting ridiculed for his uncanny shrinking formula. Expressing her attraction to Pym, she invited him to dinner when they first met. He initially rejected her advances due to being focused on his research and on mourning his late wife, but eventually started to go to casual friendly dates with Janet. Simultaneously, Pym secretly implemented his work on himself, acting as the tiny superhero Ant-Man. When Dr. Vernon Van Dyne perfected a gamma-ray beam device to contact another dimension, he accidentally summoned the horrendous creature from Cosmos. Killed by the monster's biologically produced formic acid, his lifeless body was horribly discovered by Janet, who called Pym for help. As Ant-Man, Pym investigated the murder and was astonished by Janet's bravery in wishing to avenge her father. Pym could not help but compare Van Dyne with his strong-willed wife. Deciding to reveal his secret identity to Van Dyne, Ant-Man also shared his intentions of having a partner in his adventures. Grafting synthetic wings and antennae that would protrude from her shrunken-down body, Hank Pym transformed Janet Van Dyne into the wondrous Wasp. Together, Ant-Man and the Wasp eliminated the extradimensional alien, the first of many feats their partnership would give them. As a crime-fighting duo, Ant-Man and the Wasp fought many villains, including recurrent figures such as Egghead and the Porcupine. The Wasp, with her savvy and cheerful attitude, proved to be crucially beneficial to Ant-Man's career, as she exhibited masterful competence as a superheroine. Additionally, in between their adventures, she constantly expressed her wishes of becoming romantically involved with Pym, but kept being rejected by the gloomy widower. With a rising reputation as a charismatic celebrity, the Wasp also frequently entertained fans, hospital patients and even Hank Pym by telling them diverse fantasy stories. Earth's mightiest heroine. On patrol duty, Ant-Man and the Wasp eventually received an intercepted transmission cast by the Teen Brigade about a conflict involving the monstrous Hulk and the god of thunder Thor. The fight had been in fact orchestrated by Thor's trickster brother Loki. Teamed up with Iron Man, Ant-Man and the Wasp clashed with the Hulk until Thor arrived with the defeated Loki, revealing the mischievous origin of the whole ordeal. With Loki defeated, the accidentally formed group of heroes unanimously agreed to found an official team. The Wasp came up with their colorful and dramatic name, the Avengers. As Avengers, Ant-Man and the Wasp were based at the Avengers Mansion, in New York City, but also maintained their activities as an independent duo, living at Pym Laboratories, in New Jersey. Deciding to augment his powers to be more useful to the Avengers, Pym designed a growth formula, revamping himself as Giant Man. With his new abilities, Giant Man went into action against the high-speed robber known as the Human Top. The Wasp assisted Pym with his training, which granted him success in capturing the Human Top. A vengeful Human Top grew jealous of the relationship between Giant Man and the Wasp, gradually becoming obsessed with her gorgeous figure. Around this period, in order to improve the Wasp's performance in the field, Pym developed a Wasp Sting, a compressed air wrist gun which fired long-range blasts. Having adventures both on their own and as active Avengers, Giant Man and the Wasp faced multiple adversities, clashing with enemies such as the Magician, the Masters of Evil, Kong the Conqueror and Immortus the Master of Time. Emotionally, the two partners struggled to deal with their affection for each other. The opposite actions of an excessively playful Janet and an emotionally closed Pym constantly ruined any chances of a calm relationship. Tensions escalated after Janet felt rejected for accidentally damaging some equipment for one of Pym's projects. Deciding to leave Giant Man, Janet Van Dyne abandoned their partnership. However, she was captured by the Atlantean barbarian Attuma. As Giant Man came to her rescue, their combined size-changing abilities tricked Attuma into believing all surface dwellers had such powers, causing him to flee and rekindling their partnership. Their relationship experienced another dramatic complication when the Avengers focused on the Maggia crime syndicate. Their secret leader Count Nefaria invited the Avengers to his castle under the auspices of a charity gala. With his true intentions revealed, the Wasp was critically wounded by a gunshot. Rushed to a nearby hospital with her lung punctured, Van Dyne's only hope lied in a Norwegian surgeon named Dr. Svensson. The Avengers were shocked to learn Svensson was actually a collusion alien hiding from their foes, the Yerbek, on Earth. Brought to America, Svensson performed the surgery on the Wasp, successfully saving her life. Not long after, the Avengers defeated their arch-nemesis, the Masters of Evil, and discussed the future of the group. The Wasp decided to take a leave of absence alongside Pym after her recent brush with death. Although they were not Avengers anymore, they maintained their partnership as a couple of independent vigilantes. The human top's obsession with the Wasp escalated to the point that he kidnapped her in hopes of forcing her to fall in love with him. Tracking Van Dyne through her Wasp's cybernetic relays, Giant Man reached the human top's hideout. Defeated by Giant Man with the Wasp's help, the human top was handed over to the authorities. The stressful situation helped Pym to profess his love for Janet, and they finally embarked on a romantic relationship. After this episode, Janet and Hank went into their first full retirement, got engaged to each other and dedicated their lives to scientific research. Pym took on a job involving a deep-sea drilling operation to assess the origins of life on Earth, having Van Dyne as his assistant. Their operation caused earthquakes in Atlantis, drawing Namor the Submariner to attack their platform. Considering the savage Atlantean marching to New York City could be a threat, the Wasp decided to seek the Avengers out. En route, she was one more time captured by Attuma, who believed her to be a spy trying to stop his most recent plans to invade the surface world. The Wasp managed to break free and alert the Avengers, but in turn was restrained by the exotic collector. The Avengers ultimately thwarted Attuma's plans for conquest. With the Wasp missing, Pym contacted the Avengers for help and rejoined the group, rebranding himself as Goliath. Unexpectedly contacted by the Collector, the Avengers were challenged to come and get him at his secret hideout, where they battled through his various weapons as well as his minion, the Beetle. A defeated Collector teleported away with the Beetle. The Wasp was freed, but Goliath found himself permanently trapped in his giant-sized form, a result of a long time with no practice with his powers. Deeply depressed, the freakishly gigantic Goliath pushed the Wasp away and even left the Avengers' mansion. However, when the team was captured by the Black Widow and her employees, Swordsman and Power Man, the Wasp and Goliath fully returned to Avengers duty, easily trouncing their foes, who succeeded in escaping though. Realizing that his old university professor Dr. Franz Anton could be a solution to his problem, Goliath secretly went to South America with hopes of a cure, where he found that Anton was a prisoner of the Keeper of the Flame. The Wasp and the Avengers tracked down Goliath and escaped with Dr. Anton. When Goliath finally asked Dr. Anton for aid, he told the hero that only one man could possibly help, Dr. Henry Pym. Pym slowly overcame his depression by getting used to his condition, much to Van Dyne's delight. However, their relationship experienced another minor turmoil after Pym decided to rudely dismiss her as his assistant, hiring biochemist Bill Foster to replace her. As a public figure, due to her activities both as a socialite and as an Avenger, Van Dyne became the obsession of a new villain, her friend's ex-boyfriend Arthur Parks, the Living Laser. Seeking to win the Wasp's love, the Laser attacked Goliath at his lab, but the Man-Mountain easily defeated his foe, who then turned over to fellow Avengers Captain America and Hawkeye. The Living Laser broke free and made the Wasp and the Avengers his prisoners. Learning that the Avengers were in trouble, Goliath tracked the Laser down to his base. However, by the time he arrived, the Living Laser had already absconded with the Wasp, trying to overthrow the nation of Costa Verde. The Avengers launched an attack against the Laser's forces. During the course of the battle, Goliath allowed himself to get captured. Previously regaining his shrinking powers with Foster's help, he was able to free himself and the Wasp. The Avengers then crushed the living lasers invasion. When examining the Dragon Man robot as part of his initial studies on artificial intelligence, Pym was approached by Dragon Man's former controller, Diablo. Wishing to have the creature restored to life, Diablo took both Goliath and the Wasp prisoners. By threatening the Wasp's life, Diablo forced Goliath to build an army of Dragon Men in a plot to take over the world. The Avengers came to help, but Goliath was forced to fight his comrades as he did not wish the Wasp to get hurt. However, the Avengers' newest ally Hercules defeated the Dragon Man and saved the Wasp, taking Diablo prisoner and destroying his castle. During this crisis, Van Dyne turned 23 and, as a consequence, fully inherited her family fortune, effectively becoming a millionaire. Reinventing himself as the Whirlwind, the Wasp stalker previously known as the Human Top decided to get revenge against his old enemies. Taking on the false identity of Charles Matthews, Whirlwind worked for the now millionaire Van Dyne as her chauffeur. This allowed him to know in detail when to strike the Avengers' mansion. Whirlwind made his move by using a shrinking ray to reduce the Wasp and Goliath down to ant size and toss them into Pym's ant's habitat. Without any control devices and having their size-changing powers negated, the couple was forced to fend for themselves against the insects. Eventually, Pym got to a miniaturized cybernetic control center and created an ant-controlling headpiece, which allowed them to escape their death trap. Whirlwind was forced to flee when confronted by the other Avengers, but managed to keep his secret alter ego unrevealed. In order to get their minds off of this recent drama, the couple decided to take a short vacation trip to Las Vegas. Ultron and Yellow Jacket. After many enemies, the Wasp and the Avengers met their most formidable foe in the form of Ultron, the living automaton. Masquerading as the macabre Crimson Cowl and manipulating the Avengers' butler, Edwin Jarvis, Ultron attacked the Avengers alongside a new group of Masters of Evil, which included Whirlwind. Helped by the Black Knight, the Wasp and the Avengers were victorious against the Masters. Ultron, however, managed to escape after revealing his true identity. The humanoid machine continued to plot against the Avengers by sending a creation of his own to infiltrate the Avengers' mansion, a synthetic man with ethereal abilities. Shocked by the lifeless and unearthly apparition inside her quarters, the Wasp verbally expressed the terror caused by such an inhuman vision. As the other Avengers came to her rescue, the android was incapacitated and then analyzed. Adopting the name Vision after the Wasp's reaction, the artificial man overcame Ultron's programming and led the Avengers to his former master's hideout. Ultron was apparently destroyed, but the mystery behind his hate against the Avengers remained. During their investigation, the Avengers came upon the ruins of one of Pym's former laboratories, where Pym had access to records of himself creating Ultron, a consequence of his interest in artificial intelligence for studying Dragon Man. Ultron, having a fast-evolving intelligence, rebelled against his father. As a final act during their fight, Ultron erased Pym's memory about his existence and left the devastated site. Later, Van Dyne found her debilitated partner, but only after all traces of Ultron had vanished. Ultron's attack proved to have a deep impact on Pym's psyche. This was aggravated by a combination of his emotional repression and the chemicals he had inadvertently been exposing himself to, which triggered a schizophrenic episode. His memories of Hank Pym were submerged and his inhibitions were pushed to the fore. Developing a new identity as the chauvinistic Yellow Jacket in order to antagonize Goliath's insecure attitude, Hank Pym forged himself into an assertive lover to the Wasp. Using his villainous new alias, he fabricated a story in which he believed he had defeated Goliath in battle, shrinking him down to size and leaving him to die at the hands of a spider. The grieving Avengers clashed with their teammate's murderer, which ended with the heroes defeated and Janet Van Dyne as Yellow Jacket's prisoner. When the Avengers came to the Wasp's rescue, much to their shock and surprise, she informed them that she intended to marry her obnoxious captor. A bizarre wedding ceremony went through, and the catering staff had been unknowingly replaced by the ringmaster and his circus of crime. Seeing Van Dyne in peril at the hands of the villains, Yellow Jacket at first cracked under the pressure but then used Goliath's growing powers, revealing to his teammates that he was Hank Pym all along. The circus of crime was easily defeated by Avengers easily turned over to the authorities. With Pym's mind seemingly restored, the just-married couple was able to enjoy some happiness. During their honeymoon, Pym deduced that his growing powers were partially responsible for his schizophrenic episode and decided to retire as Goliath in favor of maintaining his Yellow Jacket identity, using shrinking powers once again. With the end of their honeymoon, the Wasp and her husband accompanied the Avengers on a mission to rescue the Black Widow in the Caribbean, which turned out to be a trap set by Egghead, who continuously targeted the Avengers, seeking revenge against his old foes Hank Pym and the Wasp with no success. Another ghost of the Pym's past manifested in the form of a failed attack executed by a recovered Ultron. Following some other missions alongside his wife and the Avengers, Pym was eventually offered an assignment by the government to study in Alaska. Since he accepted the proposal, Yellow Jacket and the Wasp permanently left the Avengers and resumed their activities as researchers. Attributes. Powers. The winsome Wasp is one of the most experienced users of the size-changing Pym Particles, being the first person to employ them to acquire superhuman abilities besides their creator Hank Pym. The Pym Particles treatment grants her access to a variety of derivative abilities, mainly flying when reduced in size and firing bioenergy stings. Size reduction. Due to long-term exposure to Pym Particles, the Wasp can reduce herself in size, down to the dimensions of the insect from which she takes her name, roughly half an inch in height. She usually chooses not to retain her standard density while at this reduced mass, but can choose to do so at will. The lost mass is shunted to a pocket dimension for later retrieval. Additionally, her strength was boosted while she is at reduced size, to the extent that she can bend a 1-inch diameter steel bar almost double. Her size allows her to be easily unnoticed in most cases, allowing her to become stealthy in some cases. Biosynthetic wings. Due to small implanted insect wings, the Wasp could fly at incredibly fast speeds. These are functional when she reduced herself in height, and can remain so until reaching a height that is a nearly foot shorter than her normal height. Her flight speed can also allow her to gain a form of superhuman reflexes and agility, being able to easily evade targets and attacks. Wasp sting. The Wasp could generate powerful bioelectric blasts from her hand that have been shown to be capable of cutting through high-density structures and is able to cause extreme pain to superhumanly strong and highly durable beings and can pierce their skin. At full size, Janet's stings can burn the face of the sentry. Insect communication and control. Through the use of her retractable antennae, the Wasp could communicate with and control certain higher insects, in a manner similar to Ant-Man's helmet. She rarely chose to utilize this ability, however. Size addition. In addition to being able to shrink, Wasp can grow significantly in size as well. The growth process requires the rapid acquisition of bodily mass, presumably from an extradimensional source. This extradimensional mass should fortify all of her cellular tissues, including her bones and muscles, making it possible to support her increased weight, and giving her superhuman strength and durability. Abilities. Talented fashion designer. Janet was a very talented fashion designer. During her early days as the Wasp, she would constantly make new costumes for herself and wear different ones for almost every new mission. Over the years, her talent earned her great acclaim in the fashion world. Janet's talents also extend to designing costumes for other superheroes, especially her Avengers teammates, including Firestar and Justice. She possessed enough costumes of her own to fill either an entire closet or two. Multilingual. Janet could speak fluent English, Spanish, Hungarian, French and Italian. She has also taught herself to speak the language of the microverse. Gifted leader. While serving as chairwoman of the Avengers, Janet proved herself to be a gifted and charismatic leader. She's also an astute diplomat and an avid student of public relations. Gifted amateur screenwriter. Janet wrote a script, The Coming of the Avengers, which detailed her early adventures with Ant-Man and the formation of the original Avengers. Her screenplay so impressed representatives at the Titan Talent Agency that they set up a meeting between her and Dino Domani, one of the most financially successful producers in Hollywood. Expert combatant. Janet had adapted to a special kind of hand-to-hand combat that was created by her ex-husband Hank Pym, which takes advantage of the fighter's insect size against a much larger form and physique, enabling them to strike pressure points before the opponent even realizes what happened. She was also trained in multiple martial arts and unarmed combat fields by Captain America, making her into an adept combatant. Paraphernalia. Equipment. Wasp suit. The first Wasp suit was built by Hank Pym and gifted to Janet Van Dyne as a way for her to operate as the Wasp. Woven from unstable molecules, the costume expands and shrinks in size as the user does. Originally, the belt in the suit stored either gas vials or capsules containing Pym particles that allowed her to change sizes, but due to repeated exposure, Van Dyne was able to produce the particles herself. Some versions of the suit count with electronic antennae that allow her to communicate with insect life. As a fashion designer, Janet Van Dyne constantly sews new costumes for herself, changing the Wasp's looks more often than most other superheroes would. Avengers Identicard. Transportation. Quinjet, formerly Boopsy, unnamed trained male bee, converti car. If you want to support me, check out my Patreon at https://www.patreon.com/Kayashin. I tend to polls that decide important plot stuff in my P at Trian. Many thanks to my awesome patrons. Ben Phillips.
If you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later, bye bye.